I was raised going to church as a child. Like my parents, we went to church every Sunday, and raised going to Sunday school. And I think I grasped the gospel when I was really young, probably around 4 or 5, and just a very simple understanding that, I'm a sinner, that I'm broken, that I do things that are outside of what God wants me to do. I was, probably at that age, probably taught that I was, naughty and that kind of thing, but God gave his life for us in Jesus, that Jesus died for us, and just a very simple child gospel. But I remember the memory that I have is it hitting me one day and being really like broken up by it, like tearful as a child, and kneeling at my bed, which is, I thought, like what you did is when you prayed at night, you have to kneel by your bed. But then running to my mom and saying, like, Mom, I accepted Jesus. And she was like, wait, what? Like, okay, let's talk about this. Like, I want to ask you some questions and see. But it was a very simple understanding of who Jesus was and what he has done for us. And then at that point, it was like just maturing and growing in that. And the call to missions and ministry came from a high school missions trip. And entering high school and being able to like finally go on the trip at the summertime, and just realizing like this just feels like what I want to do. Not just what I want to do, but like what it is like every Christian's called to be a missionary in their context, whatever that is, whether it's their workplace or their home, their family. But it was also that like, God, are you asking me to do that outside of my space, like on this mission trip? I've gone somewhere. Is this what you're asking me to do? And just feeling like, yeah, that's it, and like pursue that, talk to a pastor and see what are they affirming this in you, and look at going to a Bible school and just taking those small steps to, and is God continuing to reveal that direction for you. And so I guess from like my understanding of Jesus through kind of call to ministry, that's a really simple explanation of how it happened.
Yeah, I came to know Jesus at a very young age. I remember my mom reading a lot of missionary stories, and me as a very young child having a very active imagination. I loved that. I loved hearing of those faraway places that people thought differently, they looked different, but they didn't know Jesus. And I did the prayer. I understood that Jesus had saved me from my sin, and that there was this element of there's people out there that don't know that, and that shook me at a very, very young age. I experienced a lot of night terrors when I was around 5, and I had a lot of very vivid, distinctive, repeating nightmares of me as an adult being out in the jungle somewhere. As any, I think, young child that grows up with missionary stories, that's your perception of a missionary, right? Somewhere in the jungle with a tribe somewhere. But my dream was being kidnapped and tortured for my faith as a 5-year-old, and having that dream kind of on repeat, and being terrified as any child would be, and my mother coming to me several times in the middle of the night to comfort me, and just, I think in her wisdom, speaking into that of going, I think God might be asking you if you're willing to go, if you're willing to do whatever he asks you to do. Are you willing to do that? Even if you face something as horrible as a kidnap and torture and threats. As a 5-year-old, and I think that just the Lord used, I think, my mother's wisdom in that moment to just resonate very deeply that, yes, this is not just God has saved me from my sin. Great, I have a ticket into heaven to be with God forever, which is still true, but I think it's so much beyond that of this is life and death. And I counted that cost very early of God, I think, really gripping my heart for the level of the need to watch people and help people cross that line from death to life. And whatever that may personally cost me would be nothing in comparison to people that would then have an eternal relationship with Jesus. And so that kind of developed over time of, reshaping for me what missions looks like globally. It's not always a remote tribe in the middle of nowhere, because clearly I serve in big cities in Europe. So, but I think that gripping of my heart for there are people in the world that don't know, and I am willing to answer that call, whatever it may cost me.